I missed last time, so I was doing my taxes.
Ooh, well, this will be a lot more fun. You can celebrate with us.
Yeah.
Well, nice to see everybody who's here, and I think we'll probably have a few more trickle in. Welcome to everybody, and nice to see you all here on another Zoom. Oh, I see Susan's joined us.
Yeah. Hello.
Hey.
How are you doing? Congratulations on your sweater pattern. That's so amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you so much. So nice. And I just, yeah, I mean, it's like kind of scary, but also
Sure.
exciting.
Yeah, it is. That's a big deal. Happy for you.
Thank you. Oh, well, let's kick this off. Does anybody have any burning questions we should just start right in with? Or, maybe if you have one, just like tell us where you're joining us from and what yarn you're going to use. Get us started. Susan, you had your hand raised. First one up. Let's go.
I got my yarn today. So I just had enough time to cake too. So I haven't started anything yet, including my gauge swatch. And I'm using the fleece, blue faced, Leicester, yes. So it's a beautiful color. So if advice before I start my gauge swatch, if I'm a tight knitter generally, so does anyone have a suggestion on what size needle to start with? Anyone like a tight knitter and should I just go ahead and start with the 6, or?
I mean, if you know that you're tend to be tight, I would say maybe you start with a 7.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Has everyone? Yeah. Anyone? Has everyone gotten gauge on a 6?
No. And I have sort of questions on that too. I didn't catch what kind of yarn you're using.
It's 100% British wool. It's a DK weight, and it's blue face. Say it again, Leicester. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm using the DK weight. Also, I'm using the On the Round plush DK from Maine, or dyed in Maine anyway. And so when I did a 6, and it's really, and I'm a kind of a tight knitter too, I believe. And it was way too small, and I moved to a 7, and I think the 7 will do, because I think an 8 was going to be too big of a needle. But 7 is
Thank you.
I didn't get perfect gauge. I mean, kind of, it was like, oh, that's weird, but it's not.
It's so hard. It's so hard for me. I'm like, I'm off somewhere all the time by half a stitch or a row or whatever. Thank you.
Well, and Susan, I will say too, she suggests in the pattern to pin, which I definitely don't usually pin a gauge swatch. So I actually did it because I was kind of in between, and I got it to be fine.
Okay.
I have another story about that, but we'll see if anybody else has questions.
Just around the pinning, actually, so I pinned also. And do you pin just to kind of make the cloth, the fabric, the way you want the fabric to be, and then when it's dry, then you count it? Or do you, how do you pin, basically?
So how I did it, which again, this was my first time, but how it made sense to me, and again, other people should definitely weigh in with your tips too, is I had my swatch that was like a 5. I was getting 5 stitches per inch in that swatch. And I was like, when I went up a needle size, it was flop fest. So that was out. So I went back to that 5 stitches per inch, and I got it wet all over again. And I, patted it dry, patted it in place. I had my gauge ruler handy. So I just kind of like tried to lay that on top and then place my pins so that I was, within that little window. That's how it made sense to me. But does anybody else have any other thoughts on that?
So you pinned it to a 4x4.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that include your edging?
Nope.
So the knit stitches in the middle, you pinned to 4x4. Okay.
And that was an idea that Kristen really turned me on to. She was like, just cast on, you know, you're gonna, in the middle of your square, you're gonna have the number that the pattern specifies. How easy is that? Because then you can just lay your ruler right on top. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's easy. And then you're gonna add your 3 or 4 stitches or however many you want on either side as the bumper.
Okay. I think I got that. So you cast on the number of stitches she said, plus 3-ish on each side. Okay,
Yep.
so what did she say?
So like 25 if you do 3 on either end. So it's 19 in the middle with 3 on either side, or
a
couple more if you want.
So if there's not 19, you know you're off.
So if like if you've cast on your 19 and you can see, oh, you know, here's my gauge ruler and I'm at like 3.5. Oh, that's, yep, I can see I need to make an adjustment. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll share a story from last weekend, which was we had 2 new gals join us, and they were coming to us from Orland, Maine. So it's a little bit of a drive, and it was great. And they came and they picked out yarn, and they were super enthusiastic. And you know, sat down, we're kind of chit-chatting at the table, and I had a moment where I noticed that they had started swatching. I was up and down and doing other things, and they had started swatching, going back and forth. And I had this little moment of like, do I say something? Like, this is the first time I'm meeting these ladies. You know, they've probably, you know, been knitting almost like maybe as long as, you know, they got experience. I can see that. And but I said to myself, okay, but here we go, because if those guys get home and they finish reading their emails and they see that there's a whole thing about swatching in the round, and they're like, well, why didn't you? I was like, okay. So I, you know, very politely went over and I was like, so have you ever heard about swatching in the round? And they were like, no, tell us all about it. So we had a good old chat. And the really cool part actually about the fact that they had a little bit of knitting, let's say about 1.5 inches of flat knitting back and forth with purling, was then when they switched, they could really see the difference. So it's kind of a cool experiment. And I was in the end kind of glad that I hadn't noticed sooner, because then it was like very visible how different it was when they weren't adding in those purl rows. So that turned out good. And they were excited to learn something new. So
yeah.
That was the first time I had done that too, Iris. Like I hadn't done it before. I found it a little fiddly, but other than that, I mean, the fiddly part was probably just my awkwardness, you know, trying to get through it and move around that loop. But for me, I have just been concentrating on being more of a loose knitter instead of strangling my needles like I typically do. Because of the last few projects I've been spot on, but I've learned to loosen up. I've adjusted my tension so that I'm just not gripping my needles like I'm trying to strangle them, because I typically do that. That's what I've been doing. That worked for me, and I got gauge with a 6. So
okay.
But I would recommend, if you really are a tight knitter and you're not, I would recommend going up at least 1 needle size for your gauge swatch, just to try.
Maybe I'm not as tight as I think I am. I mean, the stitches, they move on the needle, you know, they slide. Yeah. So maybe that's not super tight.
You could do a longer swatch, right? And do,
for sure.
You know, do 6s on your first run and then jump up to a 7 and see which one is. It's still going to be fiddly to do it when you're mimicking in the round, but
yeah, I'm definitely tighter in the round for sure.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about needles and gauge and everything, and I want to preface this by just saying I watched last week's Zoom call, so I'm familiar with some of you, and I'll just introduce myself. I'm Shannon, and I'm in Indiana, and I've done a few of the KALs, the knit-alongs. So this is my 3rd, I guess, but I haven't done much Zooming. So I'm wondering about so I have just done the cast on a size 7, and it's on that 16-inch needle, and I'm wondering, because she doesn't, am I supposed to go to like double pointed needles now, or jump into a 30? You can't really jump into a 32-inch in the bigger size, so you just have to go to double pointed or another 16, or how does that work as it gets bigger? And
I mean, for myself, I kind of just kept things pretty smushed on my 16 until I really couldn't stand it. I see some nods around the Zoom room. And then by the time I was ready to switch, I mean, maybe I grabbed a 24 first or something, but I don't know. I probably could have made it work with the 32. Yeah. Yeah, there was no specification, and I think probably due to size too, like she probably couldn't give one instruction that would apply to us all since we're all different, knitting different sizes.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I feel like even though I've been knitting a little bit, but all the fine details, I'm kind of like, wow. And knitting in the round, I'm still really new to. So it's like, wow, it's every time it's like, okay, how do I do this? And anyway, so it's fun to be able to join in and say hi and get some advice.
Yay.
I went all the way till I had 216 stitches on the 16-inch. It was pretty crammed, but I just now switched up to, this is 32, and
Nice.
and it's fine.
Great.
Thank you.
And now I should be able to, I won't have to change again.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah.
Is 32 the length of the cord, or is the length from tip to tip? Silly question,
Tip to
right?
tip.
Tip to tip. Okay.
Mhm.
I thought so, but I'm like, well, maybe I'm wrong about that. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So are you ready for a story of frogging?
Oh no.
No, frogging's a bad story.
Oh, ah.
Well, okay. So you all know that I believe in the gauge swatch, and I did my gauge swatch. Great. Pinned it, the whole business. And I don't know what happened, but this is the first time I've had a real difference between what I swatched and what I ended up with when I was in the larger circumference. And I know that people talk about that can be a thing that we sometimes, whether it's a yarn combination or a stitch pattern combination, that there might be certain times where you have swatched your little heart out, and then you end up, once you're on a bigger garment, you end up with something different. And mine was pretty different, and I didn't really know. And the hard part, I think, with this pattern was that there was no way for me to, just take a quick gauge swatch couple inches into my knitting, because I'm in a textured pattern, not in the stockinette pattern. So I was just like, this looks like it might be kind of big. Like I put the yoke on and like, it looks like it could be kind of big, but I was committed, and I was like, well, I really want to get myself through the short rows. I want to break for the arms. I want to knit a little body so that I can try it on and really see before I make this decision. And I tried it on, and it was big. So I remeasured before I took everything out. There was the short rows, which actually, like, there's actually some back and forth purling there, but I felt like I had to do something and measure against something that I could. And I was getting closer to 4.5 stitches per inch. And so when we have these conversations in the yarn store, which is like, well, I'm close, what's 4.75 versus 4.5? Well, it made a lot of inches of difference for me. And so I was able to, and I'm using the same yarn you are, Susan, which I just adore. This yarn is beautiful. It is just gorgeous, that West Yorkshire Spinners. I love how my fabric feels. I don't feel like it's too floppy. I feel like the fabric has integrity to me. So I didn't feel like I needed to rip it all the way back, but I ripped it back far enough so that I'm actually going to knit the size down from where I was. So I had to take out some increase rounds. But I was speaking with a customer today who had a kind of a similar experience to me, and she's using a cotton yarn. And so with her fabric was kind of loosey-goosey. So it seemed like she probably was going to knit back and do a smaller needle size. But really weird, to have that happen. But I think for the customer who I was speaking with earlier, I said, well, you know, I'm going to suggest maybe 2 sizes down because you're of what I'm seeing here, but that's not really precise. I'm just suggesting it. But what I will say is if you can try it on as you go through those increases, you know, because as you notice in the pattern, there's a bunch of the texture that's like the same for all sizes. And then we start getting into some differences. So I'd say if you're not sure, like put it on over your shoulders and kind of get a sense of it. And that's definitely what I'm going to do probably tonight is I'm going to get this on a barber cord and see how it looks. I think it's going to be a lot better though. That's my
So you
total
change
quote.
sizes.
I just went down a size. Yep.
One size. Okay.
Yeah, and that's because I liked my fabric well enough. I felt like my fabric was showing the stitches, did not feel like too floppy or loosey. But in the case of this other customer, we kind of both were looking at it like this feels a little bit too much flop to it. Yeah.
Good to know.
Happens to everybody.
Yes, I wish I had this. I wish I had y'all for support because I don't know how to frog. I know how to knit back, and I've knit like a ridiculous number of stitches back before because I'm afraid to frog. So I gotta find someone here in New Orleans, Louisiana.
I mean, the thing that's nice about a pattern like this, where there's very visible, like horizontal lines where you could actually take, I like to take, I don't know, like a skinny needle, you know, maybe a 2 or a 3 or something. And then you could sort of pick up, you know, if you've got some sort of sight line on, let's say, one of those pearl ridge bumps or something, and you could pick up right underneath that. Then once it's on the needle, you can just rip it. That'll be that.
Good to know. Maybe I'll add in a lifeline.
Yeah. Might not be a bad idea. Anybody else have a progress report to share?
So I'm close to being finished.
Okay.
But it did start a week before, and I do have, you know, a personal deadline. Going to my nephew's graduation in Florida at Embry-Riddle, and I have a nice, really dressy black pair of pants, but my dress clothes from my, you know, in-office work days have sort of just, I don't need them, right? So I'm like, wow, if I finish it, I can wear it. You know, that no pressure putting on myself. But so I'm knitting with Tillie and I'm enjoying it. The one thing I will say is I'm a lazy knitter, and I was like, I'm not alternating every 2 rows. That is not going to happen. So I didn't. And for the body, it's been totally fine. For the arms, not so much, because it was a smaller circumference. And so I can show you, I'm going with it. I'm just going to leave it. But this is where I am. So you can sort of see.
Yes.
So thank you. If you look at this sleeve, see that see the nice blotch of light? This one shows up probably more actually on this sleeve.
Oh, I see.
Oh,
yeah. So it's because I was on a smaller circumference. And so that lighter color kept appearing in the same spot. So after I did a few rows, I'm like, oh, God. So what I ended up doing was pulling from the other end of my cake.
Okay.
And it must be UPS. I'm hearing a truck. Anyway, sorry. So I got to the point where I'm like, I'm gonna have to alternate like every 2 or 3 rows, so it just is not so obvious. So the other sleeve is not as obvious, but I'm almost there. I mean, I'm at the point where I'm just knitting for length at this point. I have to cast off this arm, but because I have to concentrate, with my tubular bind off, I haven't done it yet, but I'm almost there.
So beautiful. I love, love, love that color, Sue.
Yeah, color is really, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Bright, it's a raspberry color, really, or berry color.
Mhm.
Love it. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
And you do, what size needles did you use again?
I used 6s.
The 6s worked. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Not a
Cool.
so for me, it actually, and I kept trying it on. I literally kept putting it over my head, over my head, over my head. And then when I got down to the point where my shoulders were, I'm like, all right, I just have to go with it. And then when I'm done with the increases, I'll try it on again. And it's good. I mean, if I were to knit, I think a long sleeve for winter, I might have gone up a size. Just based on fit. I want to wear something underneath it, but for a short sleeve summer top, it's perfect. Yeah.
Super. That is great. Anybody else have a progress report to share? Question? Just random knitting or yarn related chat?
Is anybody working with the double strands?
Let's see. I don't know. Actually, Zina, are you gonna double strand the yarn that you just bought today? Or is that like, are you planning on marling those two together?
Yeah. I didn't decide yet how I'm gonna spread the colors. I like those two colors together, but I don't know if I'm gonna put like different colors into one, or I just stripe it. I'll see what I'm gonna do. But I want to see something different. This will be I bought two more balls of pink because I was afraid that I wouldn't have enough. So I don't want to like knit, be at the end and nervous that I don't have enough yarn.
Hold it up for us again, would you?
What's that?
Would you hold it up for us again?
Oh, sure.
Because I think that not everybody was on when you were showing before.
Yeah. This is my pink.
Oh, that's pretty.
It's pretty.
Yeah, the camera is, this is that. That's about it. The color. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
So I just didn't want to run out of yarn. So if I have enough, if I have leftover, that's okay. I'm planning to make a doll for my friend's girl, so I'll use it for dress for the doll. Something.
Perfect. I was also thinking you could do a Sophie scarf, a little summer Sophie.
That's two. Yeah.
Maybe.
Or the neck thing that we were doing the last time, I can do multicolor.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
With leftovers. So yeah, I'm not worried about leftovers because the color is so pretty and the lino is so soft that I'll find what to do with it.
Nice.
But two colors, I have to figure out what I'm gonna do with that. I definitely want something multicolor. So
we will stay tuned.
Yes.
But yeah, I have not talked to anybody else who has been doing like a holding fingering double yet. So it will be interesting to hear.
Yeah. But regardless if I mix them together or do like stripes or something, it still have to be two strands because I think it's a fingering.
Yeah. And it's a kind of a light fingering. This is the Huasco Coton hand paints, or I can't remember what the rest of it is, but it's 100% cotton. They come in some really nice bright colors. I think I featured them in like an email, maybe 2 emails ago, because we thought that, oh, we could add this one to the mix.
That's how I found it. And I was like, this is interesting. I look at it and then I went, you didn't have much. I think this pink, when I ordered, you had only 6 skeins. So I bought 6 and now I found more. That's why I ordered more. So, but it was only 3 and 3 when I ordered the cotton. So I decided, I'll do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the colors are so pretty. I couldn't stand away from it.
Yeah, they are beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, in the shop, we're in the process of trying to play that special spatial game that I feel like I'm not that great at, but thankfully other colleagues in the shop are, where you're like, okay, we need to make room for these new summer yarns somewhere near the front so people can see the summer yarns, but that means we've got to move these ones. Well, where are we going to move these ones? Oh, you know, these are skeins versus balls, like, you know, so we've been trying to do some shuffling, so some of the bulkier, more winter stuff is moving, and we're getting some of the summer springy stuff into the front.
What, Paul?
Oh, sorry, fun. That's okay.
I took advantage of your surprise winter sale a couple weeks ago. And I was like, oh, yes.
Well, it was a surprise snowstorm. And I thought, well, Kristen and I thought, well, it might be time. We're going to be closed. Maybe we need to have a surprise sale.
Yep, that was good. So I'm all set for winter.
Great.
Yes.
So one thing that's new, I'm going to put this in the Friday email, is we have some cords similar to the knitting barber cords, but we're selling it by the foot. And especially for, you know, the length of how you might have to block out your yoke, having that option to buy a bigger size. So that is fun. We just set that up with rainbow colors and they're all lined up with their little spools. So that's been cheerful to look at.
Those barber cords are really handy.
Really handy.
Yeah.
What length did you use to block the yoke?
Well, I think I used 80 inches or so because I wanted to be sure I had enough, and it was like the 60 inches seemed small, but of course then my yoke turned out extra big, so maybe the 60 would have been fine.
Think I don't know, was it today that your email came out where you have a pattern, a new pattern that you made a pattern and you were showing the rainbow. That was really lovely.
Oh, thanks.
Congrats, that's cool.
Thank you so much. Exciting.
Looks like a fun sweater to knit up.
It's fun and it's pretty fast, and it's because bulky yarn, and we're actually trying to work to source a main dyer who might be able to dye some of the kind of yarn closer to that confetti that is on the pattern picture. Unfortunately, that dyer that I got the yarn from is no longer making yarn, and it closed their shop, and I think has had some health problems that have really persisted. So it was kind of like unfortunate because like people see a picture on a pattern like, and I want the yarn, and I was like, oh no. But I decided, what the heck, and then Kristen had somebody in mind that she reached out to, so hopefully we might be able to stock some of that fun funfetti type of yarn in the shop.
It's nice when things knit up quickly. It's like that instant gratification, you know, you feel that accomplishment, you know, so it helps you get through those longer projects.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Iris, is there a Noro that you could hold double?
For
Is it
the
one- Yeah, for your
for my sweater?
Yeah.
Well, I was actually just looking at that. Noro doesn't do a lot with DK. We have, I think it's Kakagori maybe. That is there's like one or maybe two that are sports, but no, there is one that is a DK. Actually, hold on. Hold the phone.
I'm just wondering if I saw a sweater. I went to the main fiber market there a couple weeks back.
Mm-hmm.
Someone had a sweater that the colors were just amazing. And it was a simple sweater, but she used 3 different colored Noro yarns to knit it up, and it just was striking, right? It was beautiful. And I just didn't know something you could use, in addition to having, someone dye something. It might be another alternative.
Yep. So the one I was just trying to think of was called. So the bulky weight Noros that would work would be Rika and the Sweeto that you saw in the email. The Competo is the new one that actually would work for the Sea Haven too, because it's a DK, and there's some fun like kind of speckly ones, so you could potentially hold that double. That's a great idea. And let's see, there was one more that I was looking at today. I might not be able to find it.
Sorry, just thinking back to that sweater, and I was thinking that would look beautiful. I mean, your sweater is beautiful to begin with, but if you can't find someone, right, to replicate, is there an alternative that might be able to be used? Maybe I could try it,
A great idea. Yeah. It's a super good idea. Oh, I see Zina, your kitty is here on the Zoom with us.
Oh, yes. The window is open, so he's trying to.
What is the kitty's name?
He's Juju.
Juju. He's got
My
a good
son
seat.
called him. He's Juju Maximus because he's 30 pounds kitty. And now we shaved him, but his hair usually this long.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can make yarn out of his hair.
I often wonder if I can make yarn out of my dog's hair. Every time we vacuum the house, there's all kinds of hair from the dog. Like, could I make that into something? There's just so much.
So much.
So I have another question for everyone, or anybody who wants to answer. Because do you all knit in your laps or on a table? Like, how do you knit usually?
Well, I will just put in a plug here for Carson Demers, everybody's nerd favorite. He just has literally written the book on the body mechanics of knitting, and he's giving a Fiberside chat that is April 21st. And he is a big fan of like the posture, the 90-degree angles. You should have your, I think I saw one thing that he wrote that was hilarious that said something like, your most important knitting tool is actually your chair, because you should be like, shoulders back, you've got your 2 feet on the floor, and you have your elbows at a nice 90-degree angle from your body. And I mean, I try to achieve it. He talks about a pillow in the lap as being a potential if you've got a situation.
I do that.
Also, you do that. Yep. But it has to be like the right height, right? Teresa, yeah.
I tend to do is I get a pillow so that so my needles are up higher towards my face, so I'm not bending my head down. That's where I have the problem. I get the soreness in my neck. So I have this pillow that I found I don't know, it was for outside for, like your patio chairs. It's just a little bolster pillow. If I put that on my lap, it comes up at a nice angle that my head is up higher and I don't get that strain in the I've tried doing it on like a lap desk, but that's not quite high enough. And the pillow is much softer on the, on the hands.
Yeah.
But I like to sit in my comfy chair, so not keen on sitting on like a straight up kind of, because I'm just not. I got that idea about the pillow from there's a woman on YouTube who is a physical therapist that does as a knitter, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she shares some neat ideas, and that's where I got that one from.
I don't have a bolster, but I have that one of my my dog has a very large, maybe you've seen it in like TJ Maxx or something. It's like a fleecy looking squishy bone that's pretty big with squeakers. And the middle part of the bone is kind of like a good bolster in my lap height. But I like the idea of like, anytime you can, I think one of Carson's big things is like, you got to think about the strain and the forces that are at work, so if I'm having to like hold my posture up really tight and like, I've got my tension in my elbows, well, that's not going to help me either. I have to like find that sweet spot. I think that's the trick. Anybody else have good like knitting tips for comfort?
No, my posture's terrible. But because I knit comfortable, right? So I want my feet up and I just want to relax. And I find that my knitting is more relaxed when I'm more relaxed. If I was sitting on a hard chair or a office chair at a table, I hate to say it, I don't know that I would enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if I would.
I also found that if I use the pillow, that also helps I get sore right in here. Mm-hmm. And I find if I use the pillow, that somehow also helps that soreness. I racked my hands making a bunch of scarves with big needles one time, and they've never been the same since. I learned my lesson.
Mm-hmm.
I need to try it. I had a lot of trouble with my shoulder on this the last project I just finished, and it just killed my shoulder. So I need to like in this part, it just, I like to lift it. I was like, oh, it hurts. And it had to have been, I mean, there's nothing else could be, just my posture from knitting. But I've tried it at a table and that's just not comfortable at all. I don't know. I think I'll try the pillow in the lap. Or maybe just not have these marathon knitting sessions. I just wanted to finish it. I just was like, I've got to get this finished. Well,
that is also
fingering weight.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But that's another one of the tips is like, make sure you're taking some breaks and remembering to do your wrist stretches and your up here and back here. Yeah.
Did you find the knitting with larger needles harder? Or it's just me? Like if you're knitting something bulk or
I think there's definitely like the weight of the garment is a factor. Like knitting the Carbath for sure. I found that, that was hefting that guy around especially when I was doing the sleeves and I kept having to like hoist the old Bessie around. Yeah, I've heard it's so interesting because I think I hear from knitters that big needles can be hard on their hands. I also hear that sometimes the tiny needles can be hard. And so my answer is always, well, then clearly we all need different projects. We need multiple projects going so that you can, still be knitting and doing what you love and also making more than one project and not getting bored and also being good on our hands. Yeah. That's my thinking.
when I wrecked my hands, I was using what is that size 50 or something, where it's like the broomstick size. I was
Oh
trying
my gosh.
I was trying to do something fast and I was doing too much, and it was one of those, I did it to myself, you know. But then I felt that strain in here. And it's
Mm.
not, it's not what I hear carpal tunnel. It's more along the side here.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. So now I find that my hands really like anything from a 4 to a 10.5 at the
Mhm.
most. Like that's my comfort zone.
Mhm.
Little needles, I can only do a certain amount of time. And those bigger ones, I just have to be cautious and not go too crazy with those, because you think you can go real fast with them. Just slow yourself.
Doesn't work. Because I'm needing something on size 11,
Mhm.
and I can do it like only like for an hour, and then I have to put away.
Mhm.
And if I still want to knit something, I'll take on the small needles, because I thought it's just me that it hurts.
Mm-mm.
Larger needles.
And then sometimes even the material that the needles are made from and the yarn you're working with. So if you have a lot of slippery stuff on metal needles, you're spending a lot of time holding the yarn
Mhm.
needles so it doesn't slide off, and then you cramp your hands, and then it's
Yeah.
not enjoyable.
And then you have to look at the chart. This is what I was, this is the chart. I was knitting from this chart.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's like, no way you can, like every stitch I had to look at the chart
Oh,
and holding those 11 size needles.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was fun. But I finished the top. I just need to do sleeves, but that was fun knitting.
Ah,
Iris,
yeah.
this knit along goes to the end of May.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we
I'll,
figure it seems like always like people want to knit the other one, or maybe, sometimes we get people who are, this is their first sweater, and we didn't want them to feel like they were getting railroaded through the knit along. Yeah.
I'll miss the last two. I'll be in Ireland buying yarn over there.
Oh.
Ah,
Oh, that's fun.
just went to Ireland. I just came back. That's why I was late to this knit along,
Ah.
because it's beautiful over there.
Oh, it's good. This will be my 4th trip.
Ah, it was my first. I fell in love. Ah.
Yeah.
I'm
Beautiful
coming
place.
right back. Keep talking. I'll be right back.
There's a lot
One
of
day,
Aran weight yarn over
yeah.
there. Yeah.
One day we're going out to the Aran Islands, and I was there the last time I was there, and I bought some yarn, but I want to buy some more yarn.
Oh, that's lovely. Oh, I would love to do that one day. Oh,
Yep.
gosh. Yeah, we want to go back eventually. There's so many places to go.
Yes. Yeah.
But I did buy yarn. I did buy yarn.
Yarn tourism is a great thing.
It really is. It's my favorite thing.
Iris, I like your cardigan.
This is the Scudic Bay.
Oh,
That
yeah.
the September knit along. It's in the Rebel that is on the round plush DK. And it's fun to see it. This was knit at such a large gauge that a lot of us were a little worried, but I really like how that came out. It's a perfect for right now, where I just need a little something, but it's starting to finally get warmer.
It's beautiful. I like it. The yarn is so beautiful. Those stripes. Yeah.
It's really interesting. I love how Rachel from On the Round, she's got such a great eye for her colors.
Yeah, you guys, your shop has beautiful yarn. I was trying to compare with other. I think you have the best.
That's pretty great to hear. I'll make sure that Kristen hears that. That's awesome. There's so many great shops, but it's, you know, we're surrounded by so much color and inspiration there in the shop, and you know, it's not just the yarn, it's the people that come in and their ideas and the awesome things they're showing us, and then we're learning about new patterns and we want to make that, and
Yeah.
so much creativity.
I was in New Hampshire this weekend, and when we travel, I like to find yarn shops.
Uh-huh.
And I was in Exeter, and there's this little shop called Charlotte's Web. And I go in, and it's, you know, it's a shop where they've been there a long time, very small. They have a nice selection, but not a lot of stuff. And I'm walking around, and the lady's really sweet. And she was telling me that the original owner of the shop's name was Charlotte. And so she wrote to E.B. White and asked E.B. White if she could use Charlotte's Web for the name of her shop. He wrote back, "Go for it."
Oh, I love that
That's
story.
so
That's
It
cool.
was great. I was like, that is adorable. She says, yeah, and she can't find the letter that he sent her now.
Oh,
Oh, oh,
She
It
goes,
would be amazing to have that framed up on the wall of the shop,
Yeah.
right?
it
Right.
would.
right. And so she was cute. She goes, and I keep telling her, keep looking,
beautiful.
keep looking.
Great.
Curious,
Does
I have
anyone?
to say, I got
Ooh.
goat mail today from with all the material for the notebook, and I
Yep.
was so excited how personalized it was.
Oh,
And it had my
good.
initials in it, and it had all the stickers from all the knit alongs and stuff. I was like, this is so much fun. And we're already having fun, and we haven't even started.
So
Are you
great.
joining? Are you joining next week? The one next week?
Yes.
Yeah, I am too. My notebook, I think, will be coming at the end of the week. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun, and Isla is great. She is also a former school librarian like me and loves, you know, notebooks and papers and pens. So we nerd out that way, and it was such a great idea because I saw her with her notebook and I thought,
Mhm.
whoa, that's so cool, you know, and she just sort of walked me through sort of how she thought about it and just the organization. And I mean, I love that it's so it can be so personalized in terms of not just your decorations, but how you want to organize your notebook. And she was so enthusiastic. I think you'll love getting to know her. Yeah.
I'm excited about it. It's gonna be fun.
I am too.
Well, and being a former elementary school teacher for 30 years, I too nerd out on all the like the post-it notes and all the colored pens. And so I was excited getting out, digging those out of the drawer and so yay, I can use these again.
Oh, that's
Former
awesome.
teacher here too.
I'm a librarian.
You're a librarian. Oh,
Yeah.
look at us.
Yes. It all comes out.
There must be some Venn diagram crossover.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
there is. There is definitely a Venn diagram.
And I'll share this story too. I think there's something that's like, so we're talking about the make your own project notebook class that you might have seen us talking about in the emails. And we've had this in the shop in person, and then we've had a lot of folks who are wondering about it being online. And so we finally kind of got that together this spring. So that's what we're chatting about. But so when I made mine, I almost immediately, like within the first week, I think my water bottle spilled. And I was like, there was something about the fact that this is like a regular old black and white comp notebook. Yeah, I put my time into like the papers and making it beautiful and organized and everything. But I didn't freak out. It was like, oh, well, I guess now there's some pages that are wiggly. But as opposed to like those special notebooks that we have in our closets because they're so special we can't use them. I had this freedom of just feeling like, oh, well, I guess that adds to it. The whole thing's gonna get fat as I add my little yarn tails, and oh well, move on. And I think that I love, I said, this happened and I didn't even freak out. I was just like, okay, whatever. So it's great. Yeah.
So I have another non-yarny thing, but everybody talking about being teachers and books and whatnot. So we were in a really cool used bookshop in Henniker, New Hampshire, I think. And I found a Singing Wheels.
Wow.
And it's in really good shape.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Look at that.
It's an awesome shape.
It's in really good condition.
Yes, I remember reading this in 4th grade with my 4th grade teacher for social studies.
Gosh. Oh my gosh.
It really, I mean, it's like, it's in really, really good shape. And in that bookstore, there was a reader. 1839 was the book, and it was a reader. It was not in good shape, but it was really cool that it was from 1839.
Yeah. That is cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
What
it is.
luck.
Gosh.
Yeah, it was so funny because I'm like walking through here and I asked the gentleman, where are children's books and whatever, because I figured that might be where I'd find, the readers and things. And in my head, I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to find a Singing Wheels. And there it was.
Wow.
That is awesome.
Is anyone going to the main, what is it, the main fleece and fiber show?
The Fiber Frolic.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a really fun little festival. It really is.
I'm going to meet Kelly. I'm flying to see Kelly and we're going on the Saturday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
What is
great.
that?
So the Fiber Frolic is like main sort of fiber festival.
Okay.
And it's really nice because it's at the Windsor Fairgrounds, which is a very sort of like, classic fairground sort of size. There's always, demonstrations, there's classes that you can take and sign up for. And it's one of those things where you really feel like at a lot of, I would say, small like agricultural fairs too, like you really, these people want to like chat with you about their wares and what they do and what they love. And so you really can have some cool conversations with folks. But yeah, there will definitely be, I'm sure, some other goats that will be wandering around.
And when is it?
The human goats, not the real, but there will also be cashmere goats, I'm sure. Yes.
The first weekend of June.
First weekend in June. Yep. It's always for a while, I think it was around Father's Day and maybe they moved it, but I always thought it was really funny because mostly it was a lot of ladies abandoning the dads or spouses or whatever. Yeah,
right,
I think it's
years.
I'm looking forward to it.
Look it up. Yeah, there's a big website.
I think Seven Sisters is going to be there, which I'm like, my eyes are like already. Oh,
yep. I like it when they just tell you it's right at the front. Maybe I missed.
I don't see the dates on the website. It's so strange.
I'm flying in May 31st, so it's June 1st and 2nd. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And my daughter, Iris, y'all know her because she lives there and she goes in from time to time. And she actually did a test knit for Alice for one of her sweaters. But anyway, Kelly has started spinning yarn. She's got a spinning wheel now. and she intends to buy a fleece, like a full fleece.
Awesome.
And I guess make some yarn. And I'm like, oh, I hope you dye some for me, for mom.
Yeah, that would be great.
It seems like it's quite the process, though.
Yep, definitely.
She just loves all things yarn and knitting and all the things. She's really flown with it. She really has. Proud of her. Happy for her. Happy that she has something to really
Well, she's such a talented knitter, so this will
She
just like
really is.
open up unlock the next
Oh.
level.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say I taught her how to cast on once upon a time. And she flew with it. I'm still like so far behind her. And Kelly, she just took off with it. But I love that. I love it so much. I can hardly stand it.
Oh, super good.
Yeah. So whenever I have a, I'm like, what do you think of this yarn? How do you think this yarn will work? Or yeah, she's my go-to.
So good to have that kind of expertise right in the family, right?
Yes. Yes.
I'm just gonna say, I think I've seen Wendy trying to speak for a while now, raising your hand, but you're not speaking. And I'm just curious if you want to say something.
Hi, Eris. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I just want to say I had the blessed opportunity of going into the store yesterday and meeting Kristen and Iris in person. And not only is the store amazing, it's just the energy and the love they have and the help that they give everybody. And I forgot to buy the notebook. That was one of my missions. No, but I don't know if I'll get up again. But anyway, I'm here in Yarmouth, so visiting. And I just want to say they're just an incredible store with wonderful things. And it was just such a joy to meet you all in person and see your sweaters. You were there were modeling. She was modeling her new sweater. So I immediately bought the pattern when I got back.
Oh, thank you. That's
So
awesome.
thank you to everybody.
It's always just so fun when we get to meet our friends from Zoom, or even like the folks who I see the orders on, the name on the order, and I feel like we all sort of get familiar with this sweet community, but it's always just such a pleasure to be able to chat to someone in person. And we love our remote goats so much. Yeah. So Yolanda is on, and she's having some issues with sound, I guess, but she said she went to the frolic a couple of years ago. It was wonderful, intimate, manageable, very interesting, and Seven Sisters was there, and they had the sheepdog demos, which we always love to see those. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for that, Yolanda.
Okay, so I'm knitting along here and I'm supposed to do 9 purls and 1 increase. So I'm doing 1 increase and 9 knits.
Oh no.
That means the chat is so interesting
Yeah.
that you forget what you're doing.
Yeah. I don't know what my problem is, but like when you're doing the pennant, it's mostly like 3 knits, 1 purl, 3 purls, 1 knit. But then there's the 2 knits, 2 purls. And that was like the bane of my existence. I could not do it. I would mess it up. Invariably, I'd mess it up. And I did it yesterday. Chris and I were at a meeting and I was like, oh my God, I have to like pick back out most of this round because I did. She's like, you did that for the other one too. You were struggling. I was like, yeah, I guess I'm still struggling.
I think because I couldn't visualize what it all looked like. At least with this, like the chevrons, you kind of get a sense that there's like a little pattern to it now. So when you find that purl, you know that your next one is the purl, the previous stitch below.
Yes.
That whole pennant thing, I could not visualize it. Even when I looked at it on the picture, I just didn't. I understand what you were going through.
Actually, that's reminding me. I think I want to add a little note to the email because somewhere in the pattern, I think she does say, even if you're not a big fan of the charts, just like every so often checking in with the chart. And I actually did kind of move for the second pennant, I kind of moved to the chart. But I think it's a good reminder because sometimes just sort of seeing that visual of like, okay, I'm lining myself up here. This is this long row of knits and there's 1 purl in the middle. And if I can have that as like my anchor place, so that's a good thought.
I was in a rhythm and I knew it was one purl and 3 knits, but I had it backwards. And so I got to the end of the row and I thought I had an extra stitch. And I was like, how did I do this? And I'm counting back, because it was supposed to be, it was on a row where it was knit 3 and then purl. And in my head, I was like visualizing the purl was first. I thought about it overnight, and the next morning I was like, that's what I did. Luckily, I didn't have to rip anything out.
Yeah. It's funny how there's just some that felt more rhythmic to me. I guess that's just going to be always true. I love it when I heard I'm sure you've all seen it, but knitting is like coding. There's recurring loops and there's sequencing and we're all just making 3-dimensional code all the time. So well, we are just about at the top of the hour, and so it's been amazing to spend another fun hour that zooms right by with all these fun little chats and conversations and good ideas and tips and travel knitting and just all the places we go. So I really appreciate everybody who makes the time to be here. It's awesome. Yolanda, I see your question. I'm going to answer you in the chat, or I'll just tell you people are going to start to leave, but I will stay on and answer your question. Anyway, thank you so much. Next week, we'll be meeting with Jen, the designer. So you'll get a special Zoom link for that. So watch for that in the Friday email.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, be in touch if you have questions. Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Have a good week.
Take care.
Thank you. Thanks so
Bye-bye.
much. Good night. Okay, Yolanda, so your question about the sweater is and Sue, this is about my new sweater design. So it's about the sleeves. So the sleeves are kind of like snug cuff here. There's like a long ribbing here. And then there's like a rapid decrease right above that. So it kind of like has a quick, not quite a balloon, but then there's sort of it's an angle towards the body, but the body is somewhat boxy. I can email you a picture of the schematic if you're interested. Maybe she's typing. I don't know if well, I'll type back to her. Maybe she can't hear me.
I might explore different yarns to do it in, just to see if I can at least get gauge, right?
Yeah.
That's the trick, but I think it would be really cool with a variegated yarn, right?
I think it could look really fun with a variegated yarn. And I think a Noro, like a double holding Noro double, could be really cool.
Yeah, it gives a lot of variation in color. At least that's that other sweater did. I was in awe. I'm like, oh my God, that's so pretty. And I don't remember what she called it, the name of the sweater. I couldn't find it online, so it must be something she just did. But she used Noro, not Akari. Oh, right on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, one of the Noro variegated yarns, and she used 3 different colors through the whole thing. It was beautiful. So
yeah,
I'll have to give that a shot. I like it. I don't know that I would. The sleeves might scare me a little with the tightness at the at the bottom, but only because I'm all the time.
Well, so it's not, so I and in the pattern there's a lot of sort of encouragement to like swatch with different needle sizes for your ribbing too. Because for me, I kind of wanted a slightly snug fit here, but I definitely didn't want it to be snug at my waist. So my waist needle was a 10 and my ribbing needle I stayed on the 9. with so then the second one that I knit, which was the mystery, the super rainbow one, that being a chainette yarn, that had a different sort of elasticity. So I actually went up a needle size, I think, for the cuffs on that one. So it kind of and then the other thing is I've seen some people that like to, you know, have a cuff come down so they can flip it back up. But then I saw Alice, Birch Tree Knits, Alice, our friend, she did not go with the long cuff. She decided to not do the long cuff. She did about like this much. So it's a make your own party situation, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. I was worried actually just about the Sea Haven because I'm hippie, right? So I am doing the straight body because I would have had to do a curve in and then I would have had to do some sort of A-line fancy thing. So I was still worried with the box fit. So I'm going to actually try it on tonight because the last time I tried it on, it was about at my belly button. So I'm starting to get to the hippie point.
Yep.
So I may have to do some increases before I bind off, or before I do the ribbing, which it's fine. I'll just make sure they're on the sides.
Well,
right?
or like the other thing in terms of fit is this came into play with the Scudic Bay like that I'm wearing, but it was something that Alice actually shared. She said, you know, the design of the sweater, like sometimes when it can sit at our hips or just below the top of our pants, it's actually like doing good things for our shape, maybe potentially. And I like that idea too, you know, that I think my thinking has shifted, I guess. What I'm gonna say about that.
I had to do the same thing with my first sweater because it was the same idea where, you know, my upper body is smaller than my lower body. So for me, it's one of those, it's hard to get size right because I'm constantly having to do something, right?
Yeah.
To hips, but I'm gonna keep trying it on, and if I have to, I'll do it on the sides and you won't even see it and it'll be all fine.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well, I'm gonna Yolanda, I want to troubleshoot your tech with you. I'm gonna stop the recording, but Sue, thanks for staying on and great to have you again.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so we're pausing our recording.